Sometimes we want to have full customization, right? We want to have objects that don't just pop in and out of the world. When we traverse into another world, say that we have a gameplay ability and we want to set the whole world on fire, we don't want the entities that react to world changes to just disappear. Instead, we want to have full customization, and we can do that by implementing an interface. But before implementing the interface, I'm just going to go ahead and create a material that will serve our purpose here as simulating enemies on fire or a phased object. In this case, let's just call it mphase. And the reason I'm calling this mphase is I will set the collision as not colliding with anything when it's phased out, and when it's opaque, when it's actually physical, that's when the collision will happen. So in this case, I just changed the color. I'm going to make this translucent one, make the opacity say 0.25. And I'm just going to show what it looks like in the game. So I'm just going to add the cube here, and I'm going to add, oops, this one to the cube. It looks transparent as it should right now. All right. So the first thing we need to do is we want to have a blueprints class. I'm going to make it an actor, call it BP phased cube. And this cube will have, this blueprint will have a cube, and this cube will have the M phase material by default. As I said before, we want to implement an interface, and we do that in blueprints by going to class settings. We take the interfaces part here, add an interface called world entity, and as soon as you press this on the left side, you get this interface part, and here we have all the functions that we need to implement. So let's just go ahead and implement all of them. And we also need a few variables. So I'm just going to call this one worlds. And this will serve as the worlds in which this entity exists in. We add a gameplay tag, gameplay tag container. And we can also do current world. This one will be a gameplay tag. We also want the previous world, which also is a gameplay tag. All right, so getting the world tags is basically just returning this world part here. Get the previous world tag, same thing, returning the previous world tag, and get the current world tag, we return the current world tag. The world tags, the current world tag, and the previous world tags are all used for activation and deactivation logic. Setting the world tag is the same thing as taking the current world tag and setting it like so. Well, we also want to make sure that we set the previous world tag to what we had before. And we do that before, like so. And then we can also do the same thing for, we want to do for the add world tag and the remove world tag. What these functions are used when traversing between worlds. For that, I'm just going to go ahead and do this, get and gameplay tag, and I'm just going to, sorry, add, and the same thing here, but we remove. Again, these are used when we traverse between worlds and we want to add additional worlds where this entity exists in, or remove a place where this exists in. So now that we have the add world tag, we have the current world tag getters setters, and we have the world tag container getter and the previous world tag getter. We now only need to do the activation and the deactivation. And this is where the phasing comes in. All this has been for setting up the entity so that it also scales and works with the rest of the system. So what happens when we activate the entity? Well, we want to make sure that this gets some material, right? Set. You want to display to the player that, hey, this is now an opaque one. I'm just going to go ahead and use the basic shape material. And when we deactivate, I want to use the phase. Just to show things off that everything works as expected, I'm gonna skip the collision for now. Go in here, I'm gonna pull this one in. And I want to make sure that our cube here actually has the right entity tags, world's tags set up. For now, we don't really have any way to do that. So let's just go ahead and expose this world. And let's go ahead and do the current world as well. So with this selected, we now have the default section and the worlds where this exists in. Let's say it exists in only in world A, meaning that when we are in world B, this entity will be deactivated. As you saw there, we didn't really have this deactivated from the get-go, and that is because we're implementing everything ourselves, and we need to make sure that we, upon the beginning here, deactivate the entity. And we can use either the function that we have, or just use the interface. This is the interface version. Deactivate. Oops. And this is the function that we are on the instance, basically. I'm just going to go ahead and do this for now. Now, of course, here we could have more logic to see that, hey, what if the player actually starts off in the right world from the get-go? We shouldn't be activating it at that point. But for now, since this one exists in, let's make it exist in world B. It should be deactivated. Moving here, it will automatically make it activated. So let's just go ahead and make the small thing here with the collision. So collision enabled to no collision. When it is deactivated, and we want to make it collision both physics and query, like before. So now we're phasing through it. However, when we portal into it, we now have a physical object that we can't really do. And you can imagine this being a platformer game where in one instance you have this and you're just jumping through it. So you have to use your abilities to traverse into the second world where you can jump on it. Or you have these kinds of portals in places and you need to activate one so that you can jump over and complete a puzzle.